They always stick together, they never quit, and they have really been through the ringer. This is Pandora's first family, the Sullys, explained.
From Earthbound to Awa, Jake's origin. Jake Sully was born on Earth on August 24, 2126, the identical twin brother of Tom Sully. He grew up hearing stories of Pandora, a lush moon of the gas giant Polyphemus, even as Earth in the late 2100s slid into ecological collapse. Earth's population by the 2120s had swelled past 30 billion, and major cities were overcrowded and polluted. The Sully twins' childhood was ordinary on a dying Earth, but Jake was always the more adventurous sibling. He was fascinated by myths of great warriors like Alexander the Great. When he was old enough, Jake joined the U.S. Marine Corps for purpose and challenge. He became a corporal in the 1st Recon Battalion. In the 2140s Resource Wars, Jake was deployed to Venezuela, where he was critically wounded. Paralyzed from the waist down, he returned home a paraplegic. Unable to afford experimental surgery with his veterans' benefits, Jake lived in a dilapidated urban apartment, rolling through polluted streets, but he never lost his fire. He had recurring dreams of flying free over a jungle, hinting at a deeper destiny. By 2148, Earth was on the brink. In the summer of that year, tragedy struck when Jake's twin brother Tom was mugged and killed. Soon after, recruiters from the Resources Development Administration found the grieving Jake. A deleted scene has this take place in a rainy alley after a bar fight. They offered him a chance to take Tom's place in the RDA Avatar program, because their DNA was identical. With little left to lose, Jake agreed. On July 28, 2148, he departed Earth aboard the ISV Venture Star, bound for Pandora and a new life. Becoming one of the people. The ISV Venture Star is over 1.5 kilometers long, travels at 70% the speed of light, so the voyage to Pandora took nearly 6 years in stasis. 5 years, 9 months, and 22 days to be exact. When he awoke on May 19, 2154, he found himself at the human base Hell's Gate on Pandora. He was filled with wonder and confusion. Through a neural link, he entered his genetically matched Na'vi avatar body, a 9-foot-tall blue cat-like warrior. Suddenly, Jake could walk again, literally standing on Pandora's rich soil for the first time. At Hell's Gate, Jake reunited briefly with Dr. Grace Augustine and his friend Dr. Norm Spellman, both in their own avatars. But it was a field mission, into the Pandoran wilderness, that set his life on course. Jake was hooked up to a link pod, which operates through neural syncing, essentially mapping a human brain's activity into the avatar via quantum entanglement protocols. Within hours, Jake's avatar was attacked by a Thanator, and he was saved by a Na'vi woman named Neytiri. Neytiri was the daughter of the clan leader Edukan and the Sahik, spiritual leader, Moet, of the Omaticaya clan. Her people had never seen a human walk again, much less in a blue body. Awa, the Na'vi deity, had marked Jake as special by granting Neytiri a vision that night. Moet and Etukan agreed to let him stay with the clan so they could learn more about the Sky People. Neytiri was appointed as his tutor. For the next several months, Jake immersed himself in Na'vi ways. Guided by Neytiri, he learned to ride a dire horse. He became a skilled hunter, earning the title of Taranyu when he successfully tracked and killed a giant hexapede. Jake proved himself again by undergoing the Ikran taming rite, leaping from the sacred high rock and bonding with a flying banshee. As an Ikran Makto, Jake gained his lifelong flying steed and the respect of the Na'vi. The banshee rite has only a 1 in 10 survival rate among young Na'vi. Jake accomplished this within weeks of entering the forest. By late August 2154, Jake was officially accepted as one of the people, a full member of the Omaticaya, and he and Neytiri united in marriage under the Tree of Voices. Once fully integrated into the Omaticaya, Jake develops deeper bonds with Awa, with Neytiri, and with Pandora itself. He openly defies the RDA when ordered to force the Na'vi from their home tree. Home tree housed over 300 Na'vi, but stood more than 100 meters tall and sat atop a $20 billion deposit of unobtainium. Jake's defiance triggers the climactic war of Avatar. August 20, 2154 saw Home Tree's destruction. Parker Selfridge ordered the valley razed, and in the attack Etukan fell, along with dozens of Na'vi, and turned the Omaticaya into refugees overnight. Neytiri's cousin Tsute became the new clan leader. Escaping with Grace and Norm in Trudy's stolen dragon gunship, Jake led the survivors to the Tree of Souls. There, at dawn on August 21st, Jake fulfilled an ancient legend by taming the Toruk, becoming the new Toruk Makto. With this, Jake convinced 15 Na'vi clans, including the Omaticaya, the Olangi Jungle Clan, the Tyrangi Hill Clan, and more, to join together. In the dawn assault on August 23rd, the allied Na'vi defeated the RDA forces at the Tree of Souls, the Hallelujah Mountains battleground. Colonel Quaritch fell, and the Na'vi won their war. Grace Augustine died of her wounds in the aftermath, and Jake, his human body abandoned, had his consciousness permanently transferred into his avatar by Na'vi ritual. Jake Sully's symbolic significance is immense. He is the link between two worlds, proving that understanding can triumph over conflict. The Avatar universe's history, movies, books, and beyond, all turn on Jake's deeds. His story, as richly detailed in films and official lore, makes him arguably the most important character. Exile and the Ocean Clan. 15 years later, Jake Sully is no longer just a warrior. He's a father, a husband, and the leader of a fragile peacetime. Now the husband of Neytiri and leader of the Omaticaya. He and Neytiri have 4 children, sons Neteyam and Loak, daughter Tuk, and their adopted daughter Kiri, the mysterious daughter of Grace. They cherish a time of calm. Following their defeat at the Tree of Souls, most of the 2,000 RDA personnel, more than 90% of them, had been evacuated aboard ISV Shepherd and ISV Prometheus, leaving only a few outposts like Hell's Gate. But this all changes in an instant. The RDA returns to Pandora with a more aggressive strategy, this time to colonize, not just exploit. Jake leads guerrilla resistance attacks against RDA trains and supply lines, becoming a major threat to their operations. But Quaritch's forces begin targeting Jake's children, putting his entire family at risk. After a near-fatal encounter with Quaritch and his team, Jake realizes his family has become a liability to the resistance. To protect the Omaticaya and his loved ones, Jake steps down as clan leader and takes his family into exile. When Captain Quaritch's recombinant forces arrive, Jake has withdrawn with his family to the ocean, allying with the Metkayan Reef clan, leaders Tonawari and Ronal, to protect his children. Most of The Way of Water takes place during this time. We see months of the Sully family learning the ways of the sea, and then a brutal campaign by the humans. Quaritch's raids burn a Taunui village and kill the great matriarch Roa. The Sully family fights back in the skirmish at the Three Brothers. Tragically, eldest son Neteyam is killed in that battle. Neteyam was 15 years old. His death marks the first major loss in Jake's family. While Jake himself fights valiantly, managing to repel the RDA assault, he ultimately withdraws deeper into Pandora to safeguard what remains of his family. Neteyam is honored with a water funeral, but his and Neytiri's hearts are broken. What comes next in Fire and Ash? Looking forward to how Jake's role will progress. In Fire and Ash, Jake Sully won't be hiding anymore. He'll be leading. With the RDA expanding and Quaritch still alive, Jake is expected to step up as a Warheim commander. With Neteyam gone, Loak is stepping forward, and Jake must guide him while dealing with his own grief. He'll also have to protect and support Kiri, whose bond with Awa could become crucial to Pandora's future. But Jake is more than just a warrior. Spiritually, Jake has become attuned to Awa. He honors Na'vi traditions, linking cues with the trees, following the elders, and embracing mystical experiences even if they initially unsettle him. As in Way of Water, when his daughter Kiri enters an Omatahatu trance, and he gradually accepts the deep connection to Awa. This makes him a different wartime leader, and this war isn't just about territory anymore, it's personal. Jake is fighting for his family, his people, and the soul of Pandora.
And fighting by his side?
Neytiri is more than just a warrior. She's a daughter, a leader, a mother, and now, following the end of the Way of Water, a survivor of unimaginable loss. From the great rainforests of Home Tree to the distant ocean clans, her story is woven through every major event on Pandora. Origin and early life. Neytiri Tiskaha Moatite was born in 2136 in the Valley of Moara on Pandora. She is the second daughter of Adakin, the Oloektan, leader of the Omaticaya clan, and Moat, the clan's Sahik, spiritual leader. Neytiri's elder sister was Silwanen. The Omaticaya, also called the People of the Blue Flute, lived at Home Tree Aranahe, a giant living tree in the central rainforests of Pandora. They maintain a deep spiritual connection to Eywa, the guiding force of life on Pandora, through sacred places like the Tree of Souls. Neytiri grew up in the traditional Na'vi way, learning song, ceremony, hunting, and survival skills from a young age. She was part of the first Omaticaya generation born after the arrival of the Sky People, human colonists, working under the Resources Development Administration, RDA. As a child, she was taught basic English by her mother Moet and by Dr. Grace Augustine, who established a school at Hometree to teach young Na'vi about human customs and language. According to Avatar, Adapt or Die, in 2142, at age 6, Neytiri visited the human base Hell's Gate with other Omaticaya children accompanied by Grace Augustine. During this period, Neytiri fell ill due to chemical contamination of the Omaticaya's river caused by RDA activities. Neytiri was cured through traditional Na'vi healing methods involving the Siakalin flower, guided by Moat and Grace. Following this incident, the Omaticaya elders closed Grace's school and banned Sky People from their territory. Neytiri's early life was shaped by this dual exposure to Na'vi tradition and limited interaction with humans. After the school's closure, she focused entirely on mastering Na'vi skills. Under her father's guidance, she trained as a hunter and later completed the Iknamaya rite of passage, successfully bonding with a mountain banshee, Ikran, whom she named Sezi. This marked her full initiation as a Na'vi hunter. In 2152, tragedy struck Neytiri's family and the Omaticaya clan. These events are laid out in the first film, comic books Avatar, Adapt or Die, and Sute's Path. Neytiri's older sister Silwanin was killed during a brutal Sekops raid on the Omaticaya schoolhouse, which had been reopened under Dr. Grace Augustine's guidance. Silwanin, along with several other young hunters, led a protest against the RDA's destruction of sacred forest areas. After setting fire to a bulldozer used by the RDA to desecrate Na'vi land, Silwanin and her companions sought refuge at the schoolhouse. Instead of dialogue, RDA security forces responded with lethal force, storming the site and executing those inside. Neytiri, still a young girl at the time, witnessed the fallout of this violence firsthand. With Silwanin gone, Neytiri was abruptly pushed into the role of Sahikin training, the spiritual successor to her mother, Moat. Na'vi custom also dictated that she was now betrothed to Sute, the clan's foremost warrior, who had originally been promised to Silwanin. This period marked a sudden end to Neytiri's childhood. By her early teenage years, she carried the heavy responsibility of future clan leadership, expected to guide spiritual rituals, uphold Eywa's teachings, and eventually lead her people in times of both peace and war. Meeting Jake Sully and the War of 2154. In 2154, Neytiri encountered Jake Sully, a human operating an avatar body in the forests of the Valley of Mo'ara. Neytiri tracked Jake after observing unfamiliar tracks near Hometree. She intervened to save Jake's life when he was attacked by a pack of viper wolves. Neytiri was initially prepared and on the verge of killing Jake, but the sudden arrival of a wood sprite, an Atokirina, a spiritual seed of Eywa, landing on her arrow caused her to lower her weapon and spare him. Neytiri brought Jake to the Omaticaya leadership at Hometree Aranahi. Her mother, Moat, instructed Neytiri to teach Jake the ways of the Na'vi. Neytiri trained Jake in Na'vi customs, hunting practices,
Riding the dire horse, known as Pali,
and ultimately preparing him for the Iknamaya rite of passage. Neytiri observed Jake successfully bond with a banshee, Ikran, marking his acceptance among the Na'vi. During this period, Neytiri and Jake developed a personal relationship, culminating in their mating before Eywa at the Tree of Voices in 2154. Taking a mate in the eyes of Eywa is the Na'vi marriage ceremony. Jake and Neytiri's relationship coincided with increasing conflict between the Omaticaya and the RDA. Neytiri remained loyal to her people during the initial confrontation, but chose to stand with Jake after the destruction of Hometree. Neytiri participated in the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains. She fought alongside Jake, who assumed the role of Turuk Makto after bonding with
the great Leonopteryx, known as Toruk.
In battle, she led Omaticaya archers in coordinated aerial attacks while riding her Ikran, Seze, targeting RDA aircraft and providing cover for the ground forces. Neytiri played a critical role in rallying the Na'vi during key moments of the battle, helping to organize the counter-assault when the odds turned against them. Crucially, Neytiri killed Colonel Miles Quaritch during the battle, protecting Jake and contributing spectacularly to the defeat of the RDA forces. Following the battle, the Omaticaya reclaimed their territory, and the surviving humans were expelled from Pandora. Family life and the Second War. As shown in Frontiers of Pandora, after the War of 2154, Neytiri and Jake settled at a new home tree. By this point, Jake had had his consciousness permanently transferred into his avatar body. Together, Jake and Neytiri became the central leaders of the Omaticaya clan during a period of relative peace. Neytiri and Jake raised a family, having 3 biological children, Neteyam, Loak, and Tuktiri, known as Tuk, and adopting Kiri, a child born from the avatar body of Grace Augustine. They also acted as guardians to Spider Socorro, the human son of Colonel Quaritch, who remained close to their family, despite Neytiri's lingering distrust of humans. For over a decade, Neytiri's life was centered on raising her children and preserving the cultural and spiritual traditions of the Omaticaya. She passed down her knowledge of Na'vi customs, hunting, and spiritual practices, while also helping her children navigate the evolving dangers presented by the human presence on Pandora. In 2168, the RDA returned to Pandora, establishing Bridgehead City and deploying new military units known as recombinants, avatar bodies embedded with the memories and combat skills of deceased human soldiers. Among them was a recombinant version of Colonel Miles Quaritch, resurrected as a Na'vi warrior with human memories and motivations. As tensions escalated, Neytiri and Jake led guerrilla attacks against RDA supply lines, but were eventually forced into exile when their children were directly threatened by Quaritch's forces. Choosing the safety of their family, they left the forests of the Valley of Moara and journeyed to the distant coastal territories of the Metkayina clan, settling in the reef village of Awa'atlu under the leadership of Tonawari and Ronal. Neytiri initially struggled to adapt to the Metkayina's ocean-based lifestyle, facing cultural differences and personal grief over leaving her ancestral home. Nevertheless, she trained alongside her children to master the aquatic skills of the Metkayina, including freediving, riding the ilu, and understanding the ways of the tulkun, the ocean's largest creatures. In 2170, the RDA located the Sully family's refuge in Awa'atlu, the village of the Metkayina Reef clan, and launched a full-scale assault. The attack culminated in a massive confrontation centered around the Sea Dragon, a heavily armed RDA mothership and whaling vessel used to hunt tulkun and transport military forces. The battle was the largest seen since the First War, involving multiple RDA support vessels, small submersibles, amp suits, recon soldiers, and dozens of Scorpion gunships. Neytiri fought directly alongside Jake, her children, and Metkayina warriors, leading both aerial and underwater strikes. Riding her Ikran, she launched high-speed ambushes on gunships, providing aerial cover while the Metkayina attacked from the sea. Neytiri was central to the Sully family's survival. She personally helped rescue her children from captivity, defended the Tulkun, and, in the climax of the battle, Neytiri led a final assault inside the Sea Dragon, exacting revenge on the RDA soldiers responsible for the devastating death of her eldest son, Neteyam. After the battle, Neytiri mourned Neteyam's death at the Cove of Ancestors, where his body was returned to Ewa. Neytiri and Jake chose to remain with the Metkayina, vowing to protect their surviving children and continue resisting the RDA's expansion efforts across Pandora. Neytiri's legacy and role in the future. By 2170, Neytiri had transitioned from a warrior and hunter to a protector of her family and a symbol of survival for the Omaticaya and Metkayina clans. She represents the link between Na'vi tradition and evolving interclan alliances, bridging the gap between the forest and reef peoples. Her actions across the first and second films established her as both a defender of Pandora's natural world and a fierce mother willing to make difficult decisions to protect her children and culture. Neytiri remains a key figure in Na'vi resistance to human colonization, deeply committed to Ewa's balance and her people's sovereignty. Her leadership continues to influence younger generations, and her role is expected to expand further in the years following the Second War. Neytiri in Avatar: Fire and Ash. In Avatar: Fire and Ash, Neytiri's story will enter a new phase. Following the heavy losses in the Battle of 2170, particularly the death of her eldest son Neteyam, Neytiri will grapple with grief and internal conflict. Neytiri will be portrayed questioning the long-standing faith she has placed in Ewa and the traditional Na'vi way of life. Neytiri will be forced to confront her personal anger and loss, leading to a storyline where she reassesses her purpose within the ongoing struggle against the RDA. The story is expected to explore Neytiri's evolving relationship with Jake, her surviving children, and the wider Na'vi community as her identity as a protector is tested. Neytiri's presence in Fire and Ash will represent a major shift, from a purely outward battle for Pandora to an inward journey examining personal loss, cultural preservation, and the possibility of a different future for the Na'vi. This next chapter is set to explore themes of grief, leadership, and transformation, positioning Neytiri at the center of both the physical and emotional stakes of Pandora's evolving story. Neytiri's life mirrors Pandora's turbulent history. From her early training as a hunter to her leadership in times of war, her journey reflects loyalty, resilience, and sacrifice. She helped unite the Omaticaya and Metcalyana clans, balancing tradition with adaptation, and played a key role in defending their survival and way of life. As battles continue and new threats emerge, Neytiri remains a central figure, shaping her people's future, protecting her family, and standing at the heart of Pandora's struggle for freedom. Up next,
born to be a leader, raised as the perfect warrior, and gone before he ever got to grow up. So what happens to a family, a clan, and a planet when their perfect son dies in their arms? Neteyam's early years, the making of a golden child. Neteyam Tesuli Chekitan, born around 2155, is the first child of Jake and Neytiri. He entered the world as the living symbol of the Omatikaya's future. The firstborn of Toruk Makto and the son of a future Tsahik, he is, from the moment he opens his eyes, tied to a leadership line that stretches back through Na'vi history. Neteyam becomes the benchmark against which all the other Sully kids are measured. Where Loak is allowed to stumble and Tuk is allowed to play, Neteyam must excel, mature faster, and always maintain discipline. Neteyam was raised in the shadow of the 2154 war, spending his first years among the remains of Home Tree before the Omaticaya relocated to the floating Hallelujah Mountains, glimpsed during Jake's narration at the start of The Way of Water. In the family montage that opens The Way of Water, we see baby Neteyam being presented to the entire clan, connecting to Eywa for the first time under the Tree of Souls, playing with his siblings and being taught to shoot a bow by Jake. Tie-in material in Avatar The High Ground makes his formative training and conditioning clearer. When Jake takes one of the boys on recon or training missions, it's always Neteyam, not Loak, because Neteyam is the one Jake describes as reliable. These moments are the foundation of the role he'll spend his whole life fulfilling. Neteyam is praised when he follows orders, trusted with tasks beyond his years, and held up as the model that the other Sully children are expected to match. This is the origin of the perfect son position assigned to him, and it's reinforced every time he's treated like a young warrior instead of a child. Sounds a little like a Pandoran royal family to me. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. The Avatar The High Ground comics show Neteyam is the default babysitter, expected to keep the younger siblings safe, and, importantly, the one constantly told to keep Loak in line. His relationship with Loak in these stories is a tightrope walk between competitiveness and protectiveness. They spar, they tease, but the burden is always on Neteyam to prevent Loak's impulsiveness from spiraling into danger. These are the sibling roles that The Way of Water amplifies into a full character triangle. Neteyam as duty and discipline, Loak as rebellion and risk, and Kiri, seen in both the comics and the films, as the wild card who moves according to her own rhythm. If you're enjoying this breakdown of Neteyam's early years, don't forget to hit like. The burden of being the perfect son. The wider canon reinforces what we see in the films. Neteyam carries the burden of being the perfect son. Pandorapedia and tie-in guides describe him as noble, confident, and widely favored by the clan. The child who resembles Neytiri holds himself to an incredibly high standard and constantly tries to prove his worth to Jake. That reputation shapes how everyone treats him. But what's most telling is the kind of praise he receives. Neteyam isn't celebrated for being curious or expressive. He's celebrated for discipline, for following orders, staying controlled, and doing exactly what's expected. His value, as the adults define it, is tied directly to obedience and responsibility. Freedom isn't part of the deal. Interviews with Jamie Flatters reveal another layer to this pressure. He notes that Neteyam wants to be seen as a leader and warrior like Jake because he's internalized that expectation. He wants to live up to Toruk Makto's image and prove he deserves the future everyone assumes he'll inherit. At the same time, he's shaped by Neytiri's side of the family, by her spirituality and her connection to Eywa. He's pulled between two worldviews. This all raises the question the story never lets him answer. Did Neteyam ever actually get the chance to just be a kid? The Way of Water. Warrior. Brother. Protector. When The Way of Water moves out of its opening montage and into the present-day conflict, Neteyam is already playing the role of a young warrior, joining a guerrilla attack on an RDA maglev train. But the defining pattern of his story soon reappears. Loak, eager to prove himself, ignores Jake's orders to keep watch and dives into danger. Neteyam follows, not to join in, but to contain Loak, to stop things from getting worse. The two are then caught in an explosion, with Neteyam taking the heavier hit. Jake's reaction seals the dynamic. He scolds Loak, yes, but he turns to Neteyam with sharper frustration and reminds him that it's his job to keep his brother in line. The message is obvious. Bravery is assumed, obedience is required, and Loak's mistakes ultimately fall on Neteyam's shoulders. It's a pattern the film returns to later, tragically. Old battlefield encounter and forced exile. The turning point for the Sully family comes in the old battlefield, a forest scarred with gunship wreckage, AMP shells, and rusted metal from the First War. Loak, in his usual mix of curiosity and defiance, leads Kiri, Took, and Spider on an expedition. When they are captured by Quaritch and his recon squad, Neteyam is dragged into the fallout. Jake and Neytiri launch a rescue bid, and in the ensuing firefight, a recon sets his sights on Neytiri. Neteyam intervenes with a well-timed arrow, saving his mother's life. But having revealed his position, he fumbles nervously with his next arrow, leaving him vulnerable to recon fire. Only a desperate lunge from Jake saves him from a hail of bullets. It's a timely reminder that the Golden Boy is still just a kid. All the Sully kids are rescued, but the encounter makes Jake realize that Quaritch will keep hunting him through his children, and they are no longer safe. Overnight, Neteyam shifts from heir of a forest clan to a refugee trying to adjust to a new home and a new way of life. And if you're enjoying this video, why not try adjusting to life as a subscriber to this channel? Learning the way of water. Once the Sullys arrive in Awa'atlu, Neteyam adapts to the Metkayina way of life with the same focus he applies to everything else. During reef training, he picks up new techniques: elu riding, breath control, diving, taking instruction from Tsireya without the friction Loak shows. Yet he's still pulled into the familiar role of mediator. When Anung mocks Kiri and Loak as freaks, Neteyam tries to defuse the situation before backing his brother once fists fly. Later, after learning Anung abandoned Loak beyond the reef, he drags him to Tonawari to confess, while still urging Loak not to make things harder for the family. Loak isn't just breaking rules anymore, he's brushing ever closer to death, bringing Neteyam one step closer to the line with him. Protecting his brother stops being a responsibility. It becomes a countdown. The Tulkun Hunt and Sea Dragon Battle. The Tulkun Hunt sees Neteyam make the most important choice of his story. When the Metkayina learn a Tulkun has been killed, Loak decides to sneak out and warn Payakan, defying Jake's explicit orders to stay out of it. Neteyam knows exactly what it means to defy their father. He argues with Loak and tries to stop him, but even after this is thrown back in his face as the perfect son, he still ends up following. For once, he isn't just cleaning up after Loak's recklessness, he's choosing his brother's cause over Jake's authority, which marks a crucial shift. Their choice pulls them straight into Quaritch's trap. Payakan has already been tagged by the whalers, and Loak, Tsireya, and Took are captured and used as bait. In the running fight around the whaling ship in the sea stacks, Neteyam helps save Payakan by ripping off the tracker and drawing fire away on an elu, fighting with the same hit-and-run technique Jake drilled into him from childhood. Everything then escalates aboard the Sea Dragon. Neteyam boards the ship to rescue his captured siblings and frees Loak, Tsireya, and Took. He's ready to pull them out, but Loak wants to go back for Spider, who is still in the RDA's captivity. Again, Neteyam chooses to follow Loak. The infiltration that follows is the clearest demonstration of his abilities in the film. He moves through the ship with controlled aggression, coordinating with Loak in tight spaces, freeing Spider. Under fire, he stays focused and decisive, leading the others to the moon pool and making sure Loak and Spider hit the water first before diving after them. For a brief time, Neteyam isn't just a child under pressure, but a fully realized warrior, doing exactly what he was raised to do. Tragically, it costs him everything: Neteyam's death. Neteyam is hit as he jumps into the water. The wound is fatal. After a ride on an elu to safety from Quaritch, his final moments are spent surrounded by his family, Jake and Neytiri holding him as the light fades from his eyes, the perfect son fulfilling the role he's been trained for since childhood. Protect your siblings, no matter the cost. The Metkayina funeral that closes out Way of Water is stark and beautiful. His body is returned to the sea as all gather in mourning. Neytiri is devastated, Jake is hollowed out, and the younger siblings, especially Loak, are shattered. In a story defined by responsibility, expectation, and sacrifice, Neteyam's death is the ultimate tragic payoff. Death and legacy. Neteyam's shadow over fire and ash. The emotional fallout of Neteyam's death will be the foundation of Avatar, Fire and Ash. Jake and Neytiri will still be shattered, their relationship strained by grief. For Loak, the impact is likely going to make him grow up very quickly. Now the oldest surviving biological child, he carries a weight he never trained for. The survivor's guilt is immediate and crushing. It was his decision to sneak out, and then his insistence on rescuing Spider that drew Neteyam into the line of fire. Fire and Ash is set to focus heavily on Loak's trauma, his newfound responsibilities, and the impossible task of living with the knowledge that his brother died saving him. Neteyam may be gone, but Loak's arc is now shaped entirely by the shadow he left behind. To soften the blow of his absence, some good news. Neteyam will be getting some screen time. In Fire and Ash, the first trailer opened with a flashback of the brothers writing their Ikrons together. There is also the strong possibility that Loak or Neytiri might commune with Neteyam at the Tree of Souls. These moments could allow the characters to speak to him, ask for guidance, or confront the grief they've been unable to voice aloud. Even in death, Neteyam will be the quiet, emotional center of Fire and Ash, with the entire story shaped by the consequences of his loss. Thematically, this fits perfectly. In life, Neteyam stood at the intersection of Jake's marine discipline and Neytiri's Na'vi spirituality, the child who carried both worlds without ever complaining. In death, he has the potential to become something even more important. The spiritual anchor that shapes Loak's identity, steadies Neytiri's rage, and reminds the entire Sully family what they are fighting for. Will Neteyam stay frozen as the perfect son in his family's memory, or will Fire and Ash show us his flaws and doubts through flashbacks and visions, turning him into something even more human? And when Loak finally stands on his own as a leader, will he be living up to Neteyam, or finally stepping out of his shadow?
Now to Kiri.
Born from a dead body, fathered by a planetary consciousness, and in control of the nature around her. If you think Kiri's power is impressive now, wait until she takes on Varang. Let's get into Kiri and what you need to know before Fire and Ash. Origin and early life. Kiri was born in 2155, just 1 year after the First War. Her full name, Kiri Tesuli Kiresi Ite, carries the weight of her origins. Kiri as her given name, Tesuli from her adoptive father Jake's Na'vi name, Jake Sully, and Kiresi Ite meaning daughter of Grace, the Na'vi translation of Grace Augustine. As Jake explains, she was born of Grace's still living but comatose avatar body after Grace died in the 2154 conflict. No one knows who the father is. Her existence is treated as a mystery, described by some as a virgin birth, and by others as Awa's will. Jake and Neytiri adopted her into the Sully family immediately. Kiri is about the same age as Neteyam. In The Way of Water, we even see flashes of their early days, when both infants were brought by Jake and Neytiri to the Tree of Souls for their first connection to Awa, surrounded by the entire Omaticaya clan. She has both human and Na'vi traits, 5 fingers, soft eyebrows, and no elongated canines, marking her as a Na'vi-human hybrid like the rest of the Sully kids. She grew up among the Omaticaya, first in the remnants of Home Tree between 2155 to 2168, and later in the Floating Mountains. She lived shoulder to shoulder with Neteyam, Loak, and Tuk. Moat, her adoptive grandmother, guided her through Na'vi traditions, rituals, and healing arts, something we see in Avatar: The High Ground. She spent much of her childhood alongside Spider, the human boy born just before the fall of the Home Tree. Together, they explored forests, observed animals, and learned survival skills. In High Ground, we even see them wandering Hell's Gate and venturing into dangerous old battlefields. To Kiri, Spider isn't just a friend, she's always the one fighting for his place in the family, even when Neytiri refuses. The comics show her inviting him into Sully celebrations, much to Neytiri's frustration. When growing up, life in the Omaticaya clan included lessons, games, swimming, training and hunting, and navigating the forest. Kiri showed a consistent interest in the natural world and in the plants and creatures around her, often spending extended periods observing them closely, a practice we can see carried through into The Way of Water. This curiosity closely reflected Grace's passion for Pandora's flora. Unique powers and spiritual connection. As she grew up, Kiri's abilities and her affinity with Pandoran nature became more visible. Kiri tamed a mountain banshee, Ikron, named Tanhi when she was a child. Unlike other Omaticaya, she does not go through the standard Iknomaya trial with a banshee like we see Jake experience in Avatar. If you remember, that was a life or death moment for Jake. Instead, she simply approaches an Ikron and asks it to be her friend, and it accepts her. She also starts to ride earlier than typical Omaticaya teens, and her bond with the animal is presented as empathetic and effortless rather than relying on physicality. In The Way of Water, her close bond with Awa becomes apparent very early on. After glimpsing her as a child in the opening montage with Jake's narration, teenage Kiri's first words sound strangely familiar and comforting. In case you didn't know, Kiri is voiced by Sigourney Weaver, who played Grace in the first movie. In essence, she is voiced by her mother. We hear Kiri debating with Moat, her grandmother, about the best remedy for war wounds. Kiri tells her, "I would use Yalna bark, because it is better, it stings less." Kiri makes sure to stay close to her mother, visiting her avatar body and looking lovingly upon her. She watches Grace's old video logs explaining the Pandoran ecology, again with reverence and love in her eyes. We hear her siblings make gentle jokes about who her father is, and we will come back to that later. In one of the franchise's most beautiful sequences, we see Kiri in the Pandoran jungle at one with and in awe of the plant life and the animal life. Until Karina gather, as they did with Jake in the first movie, highlighting her significance to Eywa. As she sleeps on the jungle floor, she falls into a deep trance, and Spider struggles to wake her. She was communing with Eywa. Exiled to the Metkayina and the Second War. The Sully family then fled east to Awa-Atlu, the ocean home of the Metkayina clan, leaving the forest behind. From the moment they arrive, Kiri adapts to the ocean faster than any of her siblings. She swims and dives effortlessly, explores reefs, kelp forests, and coral groves, moving with grace and wonder among the ocean creatures. Her first encounters with the local animal life cement her place within the reef immediately, while the others, Jake, Neytiri, Loak, all struggle to bond with the sea creatures and perform Sahelu. Kiri's Ilu approaches her, and immediately they are a team. We then see her ability to command sea life, while Rona watches on closely. The new trailer hints that she's only just beginning to understand the full extent of these gifts, and that they're set to shape the outcome of the coming conflict. But even surrounded by all the reef's beauty, Kiri feels out of place. The Metkayina children call her a freak. She tells Neytiri that she just wants to be normal, and she tells Jake that she knows she probably sounds crazy. They both, as good parents would, reassure her that she is perfect the way she is. Kiri's first encounter with the Metkayina spirit tree marks a dramatic turning point. She approaches the glowing tendrils carefully and performs Sahelu. She then experiences a vivid vision of Grace where they embrace. She asks why she is different and what the Great Mother wants from her. And when she asks who her father is, the vision ends with a life-threatening seizure. Scans show unusual neural activity triggered by contact with the tree, but Norm's human science fails to save her. Rowanal's Eywa forward healing technique, on the other hand, brings her back to life. Many have theorized that her system was overloaded because she is an avatar of Eywa, and connecting to the tree was like plugging a power source into itself. What do you think about this theory? What if this wasn't a seizure? What if it was a download? We'll be getting deeper into Kiri and Eywa's connection shortly, so stick around. Kiri's abilities prove critical in life or death moments during the skirmish at the Three Brothers. She manipulates sea plants to snare enemy submersibles. One mini-sub pursuing Loak and Took is destroyed through her intervention, likely saving Loak's life. And as the Sea Dragon mothership sank, she sent glowing fish into the wreck to illuminate escape routes, bringing Neytiri and Took safely from flooded compartments. These actions show her near-symbiotic relationship with the ocean and its creatures, turning the tide in favor of her family. Kiri's father. There is plenty of speculation around who Kiri's father is and what the truth around her birth is. While we do not yet have any clear idea, it seems likely that Fire and Ash will shed more light on this. The latest trailer hinted as much, with Moat saying, "Tell her it is time." Although the children joke in the Way of Water that Norm might be the father, this seems very unlikely when you look closely at what we've seen. Firstly, it is fair to say that Grace's character in Avatar was beyond human childbearing age. Secondly, deleted scenes from the first Avatar film reveal that Norm was already taken. He and Trudy Chacon were romantically entwined for a short time before her death, and Norm does not seem the type to play the field like that. Also, Norm being the father is far less exciting than some of the mind-boggling alternatives. Could she be a clone of Grace herself? This would line up with the Kiresi Ite, daughter of Grace, naming convention. However, this seems unlikely to us, as it doesn't explain her powers. So if she isn't a clone and she isn't Norm's, could we be looking at a literal god walking among the Na'vi? Is she Pandora's messiah, Eywa incarnate? She certainly ticks many of the boxes. Virgin birth with no known father, the ability to command nature, and perhaps even undergoing death and resurrection at the hands of the spirit tree. Kiri's role in the future. Looking ahead, Kiri's role is poised to expand significantly. The Fire and Ash trailers have already shown us that Kiri will play a crucial role in the new film, as she features prominently in all of them. We know that she will spend time with the Tlalim clan aboard their sky caravans, that she will get into trouble with Loak in the jungle again, and most crucially, that she will be taken prisoner by the film's new antagonist, Varang, the Manquan clan leader. These so-called Ash people are believed to have rejected Eywa, and the trailer suggests they've formed an alliance with Quaritch and the RDA. That puts Kiri, a Na'vi hybrid born of a human's avatar, possibly the daughter of Eywa herself, at the heart of the struggle, between humans and the Na'vi, between spirituality and destruction, between the way of Eywa and the way of fire and ash. Kiri's life is defined by mystery, power, and destiny. As new threats arise from both darker Na'vi factions and the returning RDA, Kiri's abilities will be crucial for the survival of her people and the balance of the planet itself. Next up, the son who was born and raised in the shadow of heroes and bonded with a giant Tulkun. If you think you know the Sully kids, wait until Loak steps up in fire and ash. Loak's early years. Loak Tesuli Siekatan was born in 2156 on Pandora. He is the second son of Jake and Neytiri, the brother of Neteyam and Neytiri, and the adoptive brother of Kiri. Loak's appearance sets him apart from all except his father and siblings. He has 5 fingers and 5 toes, unlike most Na'vi, as well as eyebrows and other inherited human-like features. These differences contributed to a sense of otherness from a young age. Among his own people, he is sometimes teased as half-breed or forest boy. Loak's early years were shaped by living in the shadow of his older brother, Neteyam. Neteyam was admired for his discipline and skill, as seen in Avatar, The High Ground. By contrast, Loak was impulsive, curious, and reckless, always looking for ways to prove himself. In other words, a textbook younger brother, taking risks, climbing heights, exploring forbidden areas, and challenging authority, all of which earned him scoldings from Neytiri and warnings from Jake. But it also showed his courage. He trained in both Na'vi and human combat skills. In the High Ground comics, we see him practicing archery, fishing, and knife techniques like other Na'vi, while also being taught marksmanship with guns by Jake, breaking sacred Na'vi rules. One of Loak's first major challenges came with the traditional Na'vi rite of passage, Iknemaya, which is the bonding of a Na'vi with a Banshee. Unlike his brother Neteyam, who succeeded immediately, Loak initially failed spectacularly, suffering a rough fall. Nevertheless, he persisted and eventually tamed his Ikron. This achievement became a defining moment in his early life, shown by the necklace holding a mountain banshee claw and an armband adorned with a feather matching his banshee's color. Moments like the chaotic evacuation to High Camp in Avatar: The High Ground underline a pattern. Under pressure, Loak often struggles with practical responsibilities, reinforcing Jake's sense that he isn't ready for more. His potential was clear, but his execution fell short. Adding to Loak's frustration, Neteyam tended to handle such responsibilities flawlessly. Are you enjoying this breakdown? Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more Avatar character deep dives. The Way of Water. Loak's recklessness is evident early in Way of Water. During the RDA train raid, he rushes in to assist, abandoning his post as an aerial spotter. As Neteyam follows, both fail to spot an approaching RDA gunship. His eagerness to prove himself leads to Na'vi casualties and nearly gets Big Brother Neteyam killed. This early mistake shows an impulsive nature, but also a desire to step beyond his perceived limitations and assert himself as a warrior. Further proof of Loak's impulsive nature, not that we really need it, comes shortly after, as he leads an expedition to the old battlefields of the 2154 war with Kiri, Tuk, and Spider. They come across Quaritch and his recon squad. Spider is captured during this encounter. The incident forces Jake to move the family to the Metkayina village of Awa Atlu, starting the ocean arc of the epic story. Social exclusion weighs heavily on Loak in Way of Water. He experienced judgment and derision from the Metkayina due to his human features and independent nature. Being called names like half-breed intensified his outsider status. This sense of isolation, however, also fosters empathy and loyalty toward other marginalized figures, including Kiri, Spider, and also Payakan, who we'll come back to shortly. A significant turning point in Loak's story comes when he meets Tsireya of the Metkayina Reef clan. She not only catches all of his attention from first sight, but she then guides him with patience and care, teaching him the way of water, how to ride the ilu, to hold his breath underwater, to fish in the oceans, and to respect the environment. Most importantly, there may also be some romance brewing there. What do you think? Will we see Loak and Tsireya continue to get closer in Avatar 3? Loak's relationships with his family further illuminate his character. With Jake, his rebellious streak creates tension, compounded by constant comparisons to Neteyam. With Neytiri, Loak shares a deep, affectionate bond. Her protectiveness occasionally clashes with his daring nature, but her unwavering love is a stabilizing influence. Loak looks out for his mother, something we see very clearly in a deleted scene where he returns her bow to her. At Awa Atlu, Loak gradually proves himself. He fights Aonung after the boy mocks Kiri, but later apologizes on Jake's advice. Then, he goes hunting with Aonung and his friends to gain favor, but is tricked and stranded in dangerous waters. A large marine predator called the Akula attacks him, and this is where we meet Payakan, the outcast Tulkun who saves his life. Loak bonds with Payakan, removes a harpoon from his fin, and learns to communicate with him. Could Loak and Payakan's bond become the strongest human-animal alliance on Pandora? Loak's bravery continues throughout the story. He witnesses Kiri nearly drowning at the spirit tree and helps her. Another example, when he learns of the Tulkun hunt, Loak sneaks out to find Payakan, determined to help him, even though it means sailing straight toward the RDA and the hunting vessel. This sets the stage for the final battle. During the battle, Loak is decisive and courageous. After being freed by Neteyam, he fights on the sea dragon, rescuing Spider, killing a human, and then escaping under cover fire from his big brother. Then the moment comes that will change his life forever. While he, Neteyam, and Spider are fleeing captivity on the sea dragon, Neteyam is shot. Loak helps Neteyam to the shore where he's powerless to save his brother. He has no time to grieve because the battle against Quaritch is not yet over, but the tragic loss is destined to haunt him. It was Loak that convinced his brother to rescue Spider, and their returning to do so ultimately caused Neteyam's death. A theme to keep an eye on in Fire and Ash for sure. Back to the battle aboard the Sea Dragon. Later, when Jake is trapped in a sinking ship, Loak refuses to leave him. With Payakan's help, he and his father escape the wreckage together. This moment once again proves Loak's courage, but also a newfound poise under pressure. If you enjoy Loak's story, remember to hit the like button. By the end of the movie, Loak has transformed. He mourns his brother's loss with the rest of the family, returning Neteyam to Eywa. Will Loak fully embrace his role as a leader among the Metkayina in the upcoming sequels? Let's get into that now. Fire and Ash and Beyond. In Avatar 3, the story will be narrated by Loak, who is now the oldest biological Sully child. He will have to step up and take more responsibility for his siblings, especially Took. We've seen evidence of this in early clips already. In the trailers, we see Loak scouring the wreckage of the sea dragon for Neytiri's bow. We see Loak on top of an elu, riding through stormy seas. We see him wielding a machine gun, and we see him protecting his siblings as they escape Varang's people in the Pandoran jungles. We will no doubt get more of Loak with the Metkayina, keeping his bond with Payakan strong, and getting closer to Sireya too. Expect to see him to step out of his father's shadow, but don't expect it to be a painless process. There's definite tension between them in the trailer, and no doubt we will see so much more that we can't even imagine yet. So, will Loak become the hero his family and the Metkayina need? Can his bond with Payakan help him face the Ash people and protect Pandora? Will he and Sireya become Pandora's next great couple? These questions will shape the course of Avatar 3 and beyond. Now to the youngest Sully. Tuktire Te Suli Neytiri Ite was born around the year 2163 in the Omaticaya village, the forest home the clan built after the fall of Home Tree. This was roughly 9 years after Jake Sully permanently transferred his consciousness into his avatar body, 9 years after the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains, 9 years into a fragile peace between the Na'vi and the RDA. Her parents had already endured war. Jake had led the Na'vi to victory. Neytiri had killed Colonel Quaritch with 2 arrows through the chest. They had seen death. They had caused death, and they wanted something different for their children. She is Jake and Neytiri's only biological daughter and the youngest child, the baby. Like her siblings, Took is technically a Na'vi avatar hybrid. She grew up roaming through the bioluminescent forests of Pandora, learning the ways of the Omaticaya, like how to run and bond with the creatures of the rainforest. By the time of the high ground, this little girl already stands about 5 feet 7 inches, 170 centimeters. Her family was everything to her. Her oldest brother Neteyam, the golden child, always watching over her. Loak, the middle child, always getting into trouble. Kiri, her mysterious older sister, always teaching her something new. Even Spider, the human boy who ran with them. Took was the heart of the Sully family, the one they all protected, the one who reminded them what they were fighting for. Trinity Jolie Bliss, the actress who voices Took, described her character as small but mighty. The High Ground, First Contact with Danger, 2168. Took's story begins in the comic books. Between the first Avatar film and the sequel, Dark Horse Comics released a trilogy of canonical graphic novels called Avatar: The High Ground. These fill in the years between the films. and Took appears in them as a child around 6 years old. In the high ground, set around the year 2168, we see Took as a curious and adventurous little girl, already getting into trouble and following her older siblings into places she should not go. There is a scene in the comics where Took sneaks out with Kiri, Loak, and Spider to explore an ancient battlefield. This is not some innocent field trip, but a graveyard of war. The wreckage of a SA-2 Samson gunship lies half buried in the vegetation. Scorch marks stain the earth. Shattered metal rusts in the humid air. A haunting reminder of the violence that shaped Pandora before Took was born. But the comics do not stop there. In one of the most intense moments of the High Ground storyline, Took and the rest of the kids are held hostage in the biolab at Hell's Gate after being tricked by Nash McCosker, an RDA-aligned human. This is the same facility that served as the human base in the first film, and where Dr. Grace Augustine conducted her research. This establishes a pattern that will be repeated at least twice in Way of Water. Took is a target because her enemies know that the best way to hurt Jake is through his children, and Took is the youngest and most vulnerable, a hostage before she was old enough to understand why. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Avatar timeline and the comics, make sure to subscribe. We are tracking every clue James Cameron drops about the future of Pandora. The Way of Water, 2170. By the year 2170, Took is around 7 or 8 years old, when the RDA returns to Pandora with a new invasion force, led by the recombinant clone of Colonel Quaritch. The children are held hostage in the forest by Quaritch's men. All the kids except Spider escape, but it's far too close for comfort and shows the threat is very real. Jake makes a decision to take his family and flee. They leave the forests of the Omaticaya and travel to the eastern seaboard. There they seek refuge with the Metkayina clan, and Took adapts. While her brothers struggle with their pride and their differences from the Metkayina children, while Kiri searches for answers about her connection to Eywa, Took just seems to blend in. She learns to swim. She bonds with an elu, the sleek aquatic creatures the reef clans ride through the waves. Took also forms a close bond with Sireya, the daughter of the Metkayina chief, watching and learning from her. She may be small, but she is strong and resourceful. The second RDA battle. Then comes the worst day of her young life. During the climactic battle aboard the RDA Sea Dragon whaling vessel, Quaritch's recombinant squad captures Loak, Sireya, and Took. Again, just like in the comics. The same pattern. The Sully kids used as bait. Quaritch's recom squad ties Loak, Sireya, and Took to the railings as hostages. Later, he presses a knife to Kiri's throat while Took stands nearby, using Jake's children as leverage. She watches her family fight for their lives as the massive ship floods with water. She watches chaos and violence and death swirl around her in the darkness. She is trapped in the belly of a sinking vessel, gasping for air. Her parents and brothers risk their lives again and again in the flooding corridors of the Sea Dragon to pull her out alive. Jake nearly drowns trying to save her. Neytiri fights with a ferocity we've never seen before. Her brothers risk everything to get her out, and it costs her oldest brother everything. Neteyam, her protector, the one who always looked out for her and the golden child of the Sully family. He takes a bullet during the escape from the ship and dies in his parents' arms. The light fades from his eyes, with Took still stranded, helpless on the sinking ship. The death of Neteyam will impact the entire Sully family, but for Took, the transformation could well be the most severe. She is the youngest. She understood the least about the danger they faced, but now she understands everything. In interviews, James Cameron has made it clear, Took will never be the same, and what she went through will shape who she becomes. The innocent little girl from the forests of Pandora? She's gone. What remains is something harder. Before we look at how grief transforms her in the next movie, hit that like button if you think Took deserves a break and let me know in the comments. Do you think she blames herself for Neteyam's death? Fire and ash. The weight of grief. This brings us to Avatar: Fire and Ash. We have seen glimpses of the third film in trailers and clips, but our knowledge of it is still limited. But one thing is for certain, the Sully family is broken. Jake carries the guilt of a father who could not protect his son, while Neytiri burns with a rage that threatens to consume her. Loak struggles with survivor's guilt, and Kiri searches for meaning in her connection to Eywa, and Took is carrying a weight no child should have to bear. In The Way of Water, she was the comic relief with cute moments and the I will tell mom energy. She was the little girl hiding behind her siblings, and now around a year later in universe, she will again be in danger. As seen from this early clip where the children are on the run from Varang and the Manquan clan.
Will this film give us a version of Took who is a little less helpless and who may even have some fight in her? We will find out soon.
The future, teenage Took. James Cameron has confirmed that there will be a significant time jump between Avatar 3 and Avatar 4, assuming Avatar 4 happens, that is. This jump could be as much as 6 or 7 years. This means that by Avatar 4, Took would be a teenager. Some fans have already begun speculating, what if teenage Took becomes like her mother? What if she takes up the bow with the same deadly precision? Took, standing tall, eyes burning with the same fire we see in Neytiri, ready to make her enemies pay for everything they took from her family. Neytiri has lost her father and eldest son to human violence, and it transformed her into a warrior without mercy. Took lost her brother, and the same fire might now be forming inside her. The fire is rising, and the youngest Sully is ready to burn. Don't be left behind when our new videos drop. Subscribe now and turn on notifications for full fire and ash coverage.